73 years of prison. And the persecution put him out of the armed forces. They were making jokes. They were discriminating the Mexican army. It was a serious blow to the Mexican army to initiate, to start the process of destruction of an institute with its features, favorable features, and some bad characteristics, where the revolutionary nationalism is still popular. We have to end with that nationalistic policy in this country. Cannot be allowed under a plural movement where the dependent in other countries do not count. They are only used until the representatives, they stop to be useful and they go to the trash can. That's why I was telling you that from the economic we are going to jump into the social. From there on is when there was no reaction, starting with the army until the misbehavior had taken place. Silence, submission, and to obey orders, even if they are opposed to the best interest of our nation. And after that, the most violent campaign started against military related with the narco trafficking. I am sure that you have surely heard, he was asking, have you heard that any general of the U.S. Army, any chief of the DEA has been trialed when all that drug has entered the U.S.? Have you heard about something like that? Never. And excuse me, but I am telling you, all our visitors, and we, the Mexicans, or you kneel or you will suffer the consequences, because I want you to know that at once what we have said in the States and we have repeated here at the University of Columbia, we never stop struggling against this corrupt system.
And then if we move over from politics to what we're talking about here today, they want to take away what is ours. They already did it a long time ago. A farmer in the northern part of Mexico, in the center or down in the southeastern part or in the northeastern part, if you ask him how do you produce your hectare? How much are you able to grow of corn or beans or rice? And if you tell him, I'll give you 10 times that if you plant the crop that I tell you to. If you plant, which is going to, after an industrialized process, will turn into cocaine, what will this campesino farmer say if there's no support from our government? What is this campesino farmer going to do if has no access to sell his goods? Where is the market for his current products? his crops. Well, then, of course, many times he will go into this illegal crop growing, because what is his part in all of this? As we stop producing traditional crops, they stop producing food crops, and when a nation is not self-sufficient in crops for food items, then this nation will never be independent. And that is the politics and the political and the policy line that we are following here in Mexico currently. If a cattleman or a milk producer, if the government, federal government, doesn't protect these cattlemen, but he does protect, because those are the orders that he gets, and there are no people who are actually standing up. Most Mexican politicians are on their knees, and they're being given orders, and they've been told, be careful, no subsidies to your farmers. No, this is not allowed to any kind of agricultural producer on Mexican soil. And if they're frightened of this, then we should all be frightened. And this process of drug-related issues, if this sends certain people to prison, especially the ones that are at the low end of the economic scale, sends those people to jail who do this because they're hungry, then there's a particular perversion that occurs here, because the prisons become full of people who are, it turns into kind of like a boiling pot, where humans can, if people who go in as human beings don't come out as human beings any longer, because the establishment wants to keep people from the lower end of the economic scale in that condition. And that is the phenomenon that is producing itself and reproducing itself in this country. So when Mr. Giuliani spoke of zero delinquency, zero tolerance, the people in New York, the New York policemen were allowed to shoot someone if they suspected they were dealing in drugs. And if somebody shouts and then they just shoot the first bullet into him, and no one can say that there was police brutality. If they just turn around the gun and they say, well, he was trying to kill us. And so in the United States, the prisons are now like factories for delinquents. And as soon as they come out, they become labor for the mafia. And that is what's starting to happen here in Latin America. If we aren't hungry, if we don't have parents who are home with their kids because they're in jail, and I would like to invite any of the fellow journalists who are here, I would like for you to go over to the southern part of Mérida and look at these communities where so many people are in jail, where the little kids, they don't have any kind of future because their parents are in jail. Those kids have no other alternatives, and they will be delinquents, and they will end up their days in the same place their parents are. So if you want to call this society as a very Catholic and very apostolic and Roman Catholic,